Let's talk Brendan Sorsby. Let's do it. Let's get into this one because I think it is a fascinating discussion.
Yeah.
And we were doing the pod last week, and that was when this news broke. And admittedly,
With Bruce,
with Bruce Feldman, who's awesome. Thank him again for coming on the show. But we were doing that when it broke, and I was like, okay, like a quarterback in college. Like again, I've stressed over and over again when it comes to college football, like. I watch the games, I enjoy it, but like both of us are so fixated on what we cover and do for a living, like it's impossible to do both. So usually around draft time is when I start really getting to know all the players and figuring it all out. And Sorsby is obviously going to be one of those players, but he's not in the arch or the more or like the top 3 to 5 quarterbacks that are available in next year's class. Doing the research on him since though, dude, like this is a legitimate quarterback prospect. And I think what is fascinating right now, and just to kind of summarize very loosely what is going on. He got popped for gambling on just about everything. Like this isn't a situation like Miles Austin with the Jets where he was doing table games or something where another kid was betting non-sports that he covered. Like Brendan was betting on everything. Like it's not a very good situation. He is trying right now to become eligible to still play at Texas Tech this year. Like he still wants to play college football. If he is deemed ineligible because of these gambling infractions, that's when the possibility of him entering the supplemental draft comes to fruition. And depending on who you talk to, there are a lot of people that believe that is an avenue that he's going to want to go down. Now, there are a lot of things that we need to cross before anyone even considers drafting him. One, would the NFL blackball him and tell no teams are able to draft him because he's gambling? You know how the NFL feels about gambling. Would any team be interested in going after him because of the gambling stuff and all that fun nature? I will say, Zach, and I think we feel very, very similarly about this, and this afternoon sending a ton of text messages to people around the league that do this for a living and evaluate this thing for a living. I have heard rave reviews about this dude, where this isn't just some quarterback who throws the football. Like, this is a legitimate quarterback prospect. I had one assistant general manager tell me that he is a no doubt, absolutely first-round pick. Was texting with Connor Rogers actually earlier as well and said if he had a good year at Texas Tech, there's a good chance this guy's going top 15. I mean, this is a pro-style quarterback who one head coach told me, quote, Zach, he's effing good, was how he said it.
Yeah, I mean, he's 6'3", 235. He's got a good arm. He's really athletic. He ran for, I think, 500 yards and 9 touchdowns on the ground. Doesn't really throw interceptions. Doesn't really take sacks. Like, a lot of stuff on paper that, like, I think with Cade Klubnik, he's kind of like what you kind of want Cade Klubnik to be, I think, because he's a little bit bigger, he's a little bit more athletic, and he's a little bit better at making decisions under pressure and stuff like that. I think everybody needed to see another year of him producing like he did at Cincinnati last year is the vibe I get. Like, to your point, like everybody's like really high in his potential, and they're like a year from now could be a top 15 pick. But there's also he's like one of those that you need to see it in a new conference, playing for a new team. And how is he going to handle all the pressure that came with that? I mean, clearly he wasn't handling it very well because he was gambling the whole time. But it's a fascinating thing, like you said, because this is such a new thing that the NFL is having to confront, the gambling thing, because you've had guys enter the supplemental draft after violating things in college, but it was never for gambling, at least not publicly that I'm aware of. And so the one I think of, and I did a lot of research about the supplemental draft for a story I wrote last week. The one I think of is Terrell Pryor. So he was deemed ineligible, no, he wasn't deemed ineligible. He was suspended for 5 games by the NCAA for selling memorabilia illegally, because you weren't supposed to do that back then. And he was going to be suspended for 5 games. He decided instead to go to the supplemental draft, and the NFL still enacted that 5-game suspension, right? So what does that mean for Brendan Sorsby? Like, if the NCAA is going to suspend him permanently, is if they're going to kick him out of college football, which it sounds like is the penalty for sports betting in general. If you bet on sports, especially your own team, like the letter of the law says that, they're going to sue, and they're trying to get it so he can still play. And that's what I think both Texas Tech and him are trying to get that. NCAA has never really dealt with something like this, I don't think, before. So I'm fascinated to see how they deal with it. And then if he figures out he can't play for them this fall or play in college football again, then he then has to apply. It's not like he's definitely guaranteed to get access to the supplemental draft. If he has to apply, NFL has to approve. And then at that point, NFL teams are going to know, like, hey, is this guy going to be suspended for a year? Is he going to be suspended indefinitely? Like, what would that look like? The only basis of history we have in terms of that would be you had that that run a couple in 23, I think it was, where like 5, 6, 7 guys got suspended for gambling. And the one that jumped out to me was Isaiah Rodgers was suspended indefinitely. He wound up sitting out an entire year on the Eagles. He wasn't allowed around the team the entire year. And then he was whatever he had to do to prove that he was not gambling anymore. They reinstated him, and then he played for the Eagles and then the Vikings, and he became a pretty good player. So, like, is that the baseline? I don't know, because this is like you said, the evidence is that he like thousands of bets. Like, there's all this stuff about how he was like at baseball games, just like betting live props, and he bet on Indiana when he was at Indiana, not playing. He is in rehab, so I think what would have to happen is he has to have like a proof and references and things like that say he is not gambling again, and that we believe that he is healed from his addiction or whatever it is. And so let's say you remove all of that, like history, and we don't know what the suspensions are going to be. Let's say they allow him to go into the NFL. They say, yes, you're in the supplemental draft, and you're going to be suspended for X amount of time, but not banned from the league permanently. So then the question becomes like, what teams are going to be willing to take the risk that this guy's not going to, do it again when he gets to the NFL? But as you were saying, like I personally think it's worth the leap of faith, because this is a rare instance where you're getting a guy that's projected to be a first-round pick next year in a historic class, and you're going to be able to potentially get him now for less than a first-round pick next year. Like, for people who don't know the supplemental draft, it's like a lottery between the teams with the 6 or fewer wins are put in the first bucket, and so they're put in a lottery, and so whoever wins that's the draft order. And then the next bucket is the rest of the non-playoff teams, and then it's the teams that made the playoffs. And then from there you bid a draft pick. So let's say the Jets bid a second-round pick. If that's the highest bid, then they lose their second-round pick in 2027, no questions asked. And so the question then becomes like, how high of a draft value are you willing to take? And I've been ranting for a while because I was just trying to do like the lowdown of this, but I'm curious, like, where are you at in terms of what you would bid if you were an NFL team looking at this situation? Because I know what I would bid. I'm curious how high you would go.
Well, here's how I look at it, because honestly, Zach, if you really just look at the nuts and bolts of it, the guy should not play, period. You can go as far as every other example of somebody who was this aggressively betting on games that he was in or teams that he played for or whatever. Like, this is a situation where he should not play. He should be kicked out of college football, and the NFL should look at this and be like, why in the world would we take a chance on this guy when he's done this to this extent? It's not worth it to us. Like, that's how you should look at it in the grand scheme of things. However, and we have seen this across the NFL landscape for all time, if a player has a skill set and a player can play, he will be given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. Like, it does not matter what the infraction is. It doesn't matter what the transgression is. It doesn't matter what they do. If they can still play football, they will be out there and be given an opportunity to play football. It's why guys like Antonio Brown, despite being the absolute worst teammate in the world, was still given opportunities all the way up until he took off his shirt and ran off MetLife Stadium, right? Yep. Like, wasn't who was the pass rusher that was like and again, this is totally different. Like, this is domestic violence, but like Randy Gregory, wasn't it Randy Gregory, the cowboy?
Yeah, he had some issues, and Alden Smith also had some stuff too. Yeah.
Alden Smith, another really good example with Alden Smith. Again, like a lot of issues off the field, but guess what? Like, when he's on the field, he's a 12-sack-a-game guy, 15-sack-a-season guy. So he's going to be given those opportunities. Now, again, this is gambling. This isn't violence. This isn't anything like that. But the NFL takes gambling seriously. So it should be something where it's like, no, you can't play in the NFL. You're gambling. You were betting on your team. You were betting on this. You were betting on that. Gambling's not allowed here. You can't do it. But because he can play, teams will want to get him. And again, I sent text messages out to offensive coordinators, to offensive assistants, to head coaches, to general managers, assistant general managers. Everybody got back saying the exact same thing to me. The dude can play. Another quote that I wrote down when I was like, hey, my question was like, is this dude legit? Like, is this an actual legit? And the response from a GM was, oh no, he is legit. Like, this is something where the guy has, like you said, Zach, he's big physically, strong arm, accurate, mobile. The only issues that people have with him right now is technique, fundamentals, mentals, obviously with the gambling stuff, and then footwork. All things that universally people believe all he needs is another year to not sit, but to develop and work on his craft, and he will be better. When you're talking about a quarterback in a quarterback-rich class that was going to potentially be a top 15, top 10 pick as long as he doesn't have a Drew Aller-like decline this coming season, people are going to take chances on him. Would I go first-round pick? No. Would I go second round pick if I had multiple? Would I go third round pick? Absolutely. To get this guy in your building, to develop him. And if you're the Jets, Zach, where you have your starting quarterback entrenched in Geno Smith, and you have an offensive coordinator in Frank Wright who you believe is a quarterbacking guru who's thrown around so much, but you believe can develop a quarterback in Frank Wright, yeah, I think for a third round pick, it's something I would absolutely explore. Second, maybe I'm a little bit more timid on, but a third round pick, I think absolutely.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Real
I would
quick,
say
you mentioned the touchdowns too. 27 touchdowns, 5 interceptions in 2025. Yeah. He's played a ton of college football, 35 games, 60 touchdowns, 18 interceptions. So you're right, the guy just doesn't throw picks.
Yeah, he doesn't take sacks either. Which the Jets have had a lot of quarterbacks who take sacks. So, like Justin Fields and Zach Wilson. But in terms of the draft picks, I would that's kind of where I'm at. I should say, there's been some national reporting, guys are pretty plugged in, like Adam Schefter, Tom Pelissero, and I believe Albert Breer all suggested top 75 picks. So that would be top 2.5 rounds, basically, which is interesting because that means somebody's told them that, I would think. I don't know that. I can't see a team bidding a first-round pick. Maybe I'm wrong. Unless everything gets cleared and the NFL tells these teams, we are not going to suspend him, or we're only going to suspend him for half the season. If he's going to be available to you this season, because it's important to remember, if you're suspended for an entire season, during that suspension, you are not allowed in the building. You are not allowed to communicate with the team. You're kind of on an island, and so it's not like you're developing the guy behind the scenes if you don't have him for an entire year. But if the NFL is telling me that you're going to get Brendan Sorsby this year, I would bid up to a second round pick. The Jets do have 3 first-round picks, which makes it a little less debilitating if you give up your second round pick and, let's say he doesn't play the entire season or whatever. It's still a second round pick. It's a valuable selection, but I'm just more if you evaluate him, and the Jets have evaluated him, I should say, they scouted him this last year because there was a chance he was going to come out for this draft. He was eligible. He was at the Texas Tech Pro Day. I believe they talked to him or at least watched him throw or something along those lines. And they are aware of him as a prospect. They know what kind of player he can be. I don't know what they think of him, but if they think highly of his potential, the Jets need to find their franchise quarterback, take a swing, and you're doing it for less than a first round pick. Absolutely. So third round pick is probably what I would ultimately bid, gun to my head, but I would consider a second. I really would. But it mostly just comes down to, and I don't think the NFL is going to do a supplemental draft before. And the supplemental draft, by the way, would be sometime in July if they do it. They don't do it every year. There has to be eligible guys. There hasn't been one drafted since 2019. Jalen Thompson is pretty good safety. The Cardinals got him for a 5th. But I would think that by the time the supplemental draft happens, the NFL would tell teams, okay, so this is what we're thinking. Although the NFL takes a while to investigate suspensions and stuff, so who knows? That's why it's so hard to say, am I bidding a third round pick on a guy that they're going to tell that could be suspended either permanently or for a year? No, but if you're telling me we're going to suspend him for 12 games, or whatever the length of a college football season, 14 games, suspending him for an entire college football season, then I would be more willing to bid a third round pick because the Jets can survive without that third round pick next year if there's a chance. And you could get Brendan Sorsby and go into next year's draft and still draft Dante Moore, and then you have a quarterback room with Dante Moore, Brendan Sorsby, and Cade Klubnik.
I was about to ask that for you. So if I'm going to pose, and we'll move on to some other stuff here that we want to get to. This is the last kind of point on Sorsby. But say we're probably in lockstep here. They go third round pick and they get Sorsby. Right? In this hypothetical world, they bid a third round pick. They're awarded Sorsby for the third round pick. They finish 4-13 next year, and they're terrible, and they're picking top 3. You have Sorsby on the roster. Say you didn't see him at all, but you invested a third round pick in him. Does that skew you from using a top 5 pick that they would have on a quarterback next year for a third round pick? Same question if they did a second round pick on him. For me, it's third round pick. I don't get fine. I would still go and take your Arch or your Moore or whoever, whoever you love, or CJ Carr, whoever you love in the NFL draft next year who's your dude. I have absolutely no problem with you going and drafting him top 3, top 4, top 5 if you use a third round pick on Sorsby. I'm a little less in on it if it's a second round pick. I think a second round pick is still a legit asset, dude, that you don't necessarily want to give up.
So you're saying in the scenario, let's say they bid the second round pick and get him, you would then not want to turn around and draft one next year, you're saying?
Yeah, correct. Yes.
I think I would still be okay with drafting one because they have 3 first-round picks.
Okay.
And so that's because you know you want to build the roster around whoever, maybe Sorsby winds up being the quarterback in that scenario, but so you still are able to draft a quarterback and a wide receiver and an edge rusher in the first round and still be, or trade back and pick up a second round pick. And so I think they've given themselves such amazing maneuverability next year with 3 first round. Like they have it now. Like they traded up to get a third this year. I don't know, has a team gone a whole year having 3 first round picks in NFL history? Like I honestly don't know the answer to that. It feels like the Oklahoma City Thunder just accumulating draft picks and just getting top 5 picks even when they're winning. So I still would be willing to draft one next year if I'm using a second rounder on Sorsby. But yeah, I mean, it's a conversation. I mean, like you said, second round pick is a big asset. So you have to really believe in him if you're bidding that high. And you know, we also should look at the landscape. Like what teams would be willing to bid on him? Like there's a bunch that need quarterbacks, but not a lot of them have multiple draft picks early next year. So like the Steelers, like would the Steelers bid a first round pick on him? I don't know. That's an interesting one. Would the Cardinals, would the Browns, would the, you know, like I would think a team that thinks they're going to be bad is probably not going to bid a first round pick because you might be giving up a top 5 pick to get Brendan Sorsby and he doesn't play for you. So they probably bid a second round pick or a third, I would think. And so it's the landscape of it all is interesting. The Steelers would be the biggest threat to me, honestly, because they don't have a long-term solution on their roster. Would they give up a first or a second to get Brendan Sorsby? Like that would be the one I'd have my eye on out of other potential teams that could steal him.
I will say the majority of the teams that I reached out to about Sorsby did not believe that he was going to be eligible for a supplemental draft. So it's like a weird, like a lot of the teams, a lot of people aren't sure. It's like if he's there, he's going to get picked in the supplemental draft. That's going to happen. But a lot of these teams are waiting to hear on is he actually going to be available or is he not. Real quick before we move on here, Zach, the supplemental pick history since 2002 of the players drafted high. Like I didn't include guys that were 5th or 6th round supplementals. You had running back Tony Hollings in the 2nd round by the Texans. Ahmad Brooks, the linebacker for the Bengals in 2006. Josh Gordon was a 2nd rounder in 2012. Terrell Pryor, 3rd rounder from the Raiders in 2011. And then the Giants used that's a great one. Giants used a 3rd rounder on Sam Beal in 2018. Were you covering the Giants then, or was that just the Jets? Or Eagles, I'm sorry.
I came in, so he also, Sam Beal had an amazing run where he got hurt, I think, his rookie year. He sat out the COVID year. He like took you had the exemption that you could take to not play for the year. He came back and got arrested for like bringing a gun across state lines or something like that. And then I think he got cut in 21, I believe, in training camp. So Dave Gettleman burned a 3rd round pick on this kid who I think was viewed as like a talented player, but had like a lot of issues, which is why he was in the supplemental draft. But just a generational run from Gettleman. I think the Sam Beal pick actually flies under the radar because it doesn't appear when you plug in like NFL draft classes, like that doesn't appear. So I think people forget about him.